Hello there everyone. Today I'm going to show you how to make this triple wave macrame bracelet, and this is what it looks like. So you get these three waves, the effect of them, and then with beads in as well that helps create this curve on each side. Then I've just attached it with jump rings using a clasp here. Whilst I call clasp an extended chain, you can obviously use whatever clasp you want to. Then this is the bracelet I'm going to show you how to make, so if you want to learn how to do this, then keep watching. So it's these materials that we'll need to make this bracelet. Now first off we'll need our cord. I'm working with a 0.9mm nylon cord here, just in a red colour. You can use whatever cord you want to. And then as for the beads, what I have here is some 3mm metal spacer beads. I'm just working with a silver colour, but then alongside 4mm metal spacer beads as well. They're both just rounds, and just make sure whatever cord you're using will go through the holes in your beads. And finally, we have the jump rings, the large ones here, 12mm jump rings that we're going to use to attach macrame onto and start working from. And then we have smaller jump rings, clasp and extender chain, just to add a clasp at the end. So let's get it all together and let's get started. So as for the cords, what we'll need is 6 lengths in total here of about 2 meters each, and each one of these cords will turn into 2 working lengths. What we then need to do is bring out one of our large jump rings here, so the 12mm ones. You just want to make sure that it's closed completely there at the gap. If you're not using a closed jump ring already, make sure it's closed so the cord can't slip through that gap. And then we need to take one length of cord at a time and attach these to that jump ring. What I'm going to do is just put both ends together here first of all, so like this, so I can find the middle up here at the other end, keep hold of that loop, because then we'll use this and then use a lark's head knot to attach this cord onto the jump ring. So just keep holding your jump ring, push this loop through the jump ring from the bottom, keep hold of the loop, bring it back around, and then put your fingers through and pull the tails through that loop. Just like that, and then pull it tight, and then there you have a lark's head knot. So you want to attach all your cords like this. So I now attached all my cords here to my jump ring, and it looks something like this, all the cords coming down towards the same direction. So what I'm going to be doing is just pinning this onto my board. I'm working on a project macrame board here, and then I'm also going to be using my T-pins. So to help throughout, but also just here to pin my work in, it's going to make it much easier to work with when it's held in place like this. So there we go. Just pin this in however you feel comfortable working with it, and then we're ready to start making the macrame part. What we then need to do first is just make a couple of rows up here with our knots, just to get all our cords in the right position and that. So I'm going to first just separate out all my cords in 2 bundles here, so equal amount on both sides, just straight down the middle. So I've ended up with 6 lengths of cord here and then 6 lengths out to the other side. So just start on one side and put the other ones out of the way. It doesn't matter what side you start on, because we'll be doing both sides anyway. So I'm going to start on my left one. I'm going to take the very outer one. If you look straight up on your lark's head knots there, you've got 2 lengths coming out from one knot, and then they're both kind of naturally coming out to each their own side. So just take the one that's furthest out to the side, bring that over and across all the others in towards the middle here, and we're coming down at an angle to come straight, to follow the line basically of the jump ring where they're attached, but obviously just going in a straight line down there towards the middle. The very next one coming underneath, so technically the cord coming from the same knot, take that, put it around your finger and through the loop, like that, and then you have your working cord there looping around your holding cord. And then when you're tightening your knots, you just want to make sure to hold your holding cord in the direction that we want the row to go. So tighten it all the way up while the holding cord comes down at an angle here towards the middle. Once more for a double half hitch, like that. Move on to the next one. The very next cord that you run into comes underneath. Take it around your finger and through the loop. Tighten it. And once more. So we're building a row here, coming from the very top side, going downwards at an angle, and we're going to be doing the same on the other side, and we're then going to end up actually meeting in the middle. So keep working your way downwards in a straight line, so you get a straight row of knots here. And the last one, around your finger and through the loop, like that, and there we go, our last double half hitch. So that's one side. Now what we want to do is basically repeat the exact same step but over on the other side. So I'm going to put these out of the way now, bring the other ones back in, take the very outer one on this side, so this is to my right, bring that over the rest, and again hold this holding cord down towards the middle of the piece. So basically this row is now going to end up meeting right where the end of the other one is. So that's where you want to hold your holding cord in that direction. Grab the very next cord that's coming underneath, that's your first working cord. Then make your double half hitches the exact same way as we did on the other side, except we're now using opposite hands. Grab the next one. As you can see, our hands have just switched jobs, but we are technically doing the exact same thing. Working in a straight line here, again, down towards the center, towards where the other row on the other side ends. Grabbing a cord and making a double half hitch. And the last one, around your finger and through the loop, once more for a double, and then you can see where this row now ends, meets up with the other one right on the other side. So the two holding cords there going through each row are basically coming towards the middle and wanting to cross over like that. So this is the first step. Now what we need to do is attach the two rows together, because obviously they're still separate. So I'm actually going to take my right one, the holding cords now we're going to be using from these two previous rows, bring my right one over the other one. You can do it opposite than this, it doesn't matter as long as you stay consistent throughout. So the one that's coming underneath is my working cord. So we just take these two and make a double half hitch to connect these two rows together right there in the middle. So there we go, now that's nice and tight. So what we want to do now is do another row, because I want to have two underneath each other here. So again, go over to the other side where we started before. We take the cord that's now the outside one, bring that over all the rest, and then we'll take the very next cord coming underneath, we run into the first. Now the cords are a bit more separated now, so it's a bit easier to know what cord to take because they're naturally separated out from the previous row. Makes it a little bit easier to know what cord to bring in next time, so you don't cross them over, the working cords there coming underneath, because that can end up messing it up a little bit. So just try and make sure you grab the very next cord that you run into out of your working cords. Same principle here, working in towards the middle, and then you also just use the last one. That was one of the two cords that we attached there in the middle. You just incorporate that the same as the others. Use that as your very last working cord on this row, like that. So that's that side. We now have two rows there right underneath each other. Go back to the other side again, so on my right side, same principle, take the very outer cord and then grab the first one you ran into and start making your double half hitches to create another row underneath the previous one. And when you're making your rows here, try and make sure you get them as tight underneath each other as possible, so you don't really have any gaps between your rows, if you can help it. And it's easier now as well because we're just using the previous row that we already made as a guideline for where this next one is going to go, the angle. Working in towards the middle again. And then when we do reach the middle here, we're going to do the exact same thing. So that was the last one, the last working cord from this side. This one here is the holding cord that we just made the other row with, and now again facing towards the middle there, crossing over, just like they did on the first two top ones. We do the same thing. Like I said, it doesn't matter what cord you bring over and what cord you bring under, as long as you stay consistent. So I always take my right one over my left one, that's just habit for me, and then make my double half hitch with that. And I just make sure to stay consistent naturally because that's how I naturally do it. So there we go. Then we have the very beginning. So now it's time we'll get into the proper pattern here where we have our waves going around. So what I'm going to do is just again go over to my left side and start on that. We're working with one side at a time on these. So I'm going to bring that over all the others again. We start out the same way by basically creating another row here. So grab the next one underneath, move all the way across, and just build your row all the way down towards the middle again. So it's almost kind of like we're getting a third row here underneath, except this one is then going to be incorporated into the pattern that we're going to be making. So working our way in there towards the middle of the piece, doing a double half hitch again with each one. Then when we get here, what we want to do is kind of get ready to then start making our curves and going around. So this one I'm not going to make super tight when I'm doing it. So instead of pulling it all the way down like this, what I'm going to do is just loosen it up a little bit and start this holding cord coming outwards a bit more, so we can get a rounded curve in there. Because remember, when you're tightening your knots, when you're making a row of knots here, your holding cord dictates where the row is going. So you can always change direction with the holding cord. So now we have that. Then what we need to do now as well is start incorporating some of our beads. So I'm just going to get some of them ready here. So I've got one of my 3mm beads and then one of my 4mm. I'm going to be using these throughout because it's the size of the beads as well that gives us that graduation of the curve on this section. So first of all, going back around, we need to use the same holding cord here. The holding cord is going to be going back and forth, making our swirls there, kind of waves within the wave. So first one, basically we're swapping hands now. So before, the holding cord was in my right hand. Now I'm bringing it over to the left one, just bringing it back over all the others. The very last working cord on the previous row is now the first one on this one. So we just swap hands and then make a double half hitch with the same working cord that we just finished with. And again, you don't have to make this super tight. And you can see we're starting there, coming around at a curve right on the tip. And then we need to bring in our very first bead. So the very next working cord that we would run into, what I want to do is add my 3mm bead onto that one. So we're always adding our small beads, the 3mm ones, onto the inside, towards the inside, the middle of the piece here basically. Let that drop all the way down. Now that's going to sit there. So again, I'm going to take my holding cord, bring it over, and then this cord, the next working cord, where I just added the bead, is coming underneath, and I make a double half hitch with that again, and tighten that. And now it's proper coming around as a curve there, my row of knots. So there we go. So that's basically caged in that bead there. So grab on to your very next working cord, underneath, around your finger and through the loop, and then tighten that. And now what we want to do is start pulling this row of knots back up towards, so we can get a curve on the other side as well. So we don't want to open a gap here on the other side. So basically I'm pushing the holding cord a bit upwards again, almost like we're coming around the bead. Grabbing the next one, and do that again. So for every knot that you tighten, I'm just making it more and more curved. So it's not straight lines going around like this, but it's kind of almost curving around the beads. So there, now we have one working cord left. I'm going to take that. Again, this one I'm not going to make too tight. I'm not going to keep going upwards like this because we need to then start coming back downwards to make the next curve. So just gently start changing the direction of your holding cord, as you can see here, as you're tightening your knots. So we're coming back down to make a curve on the other side, where we're then also going to fit in a bead. Now we need to change direction, come back the other way. So I take my holding cord, swap hands, bring it over all the other cords here, but in the opposite direction. Grab the very first working cord that I ran into, which was my last one in the previous row. Make a double half hitch with that. Same principle as I showed you on the other end. Tighten that, and we're really coming around on a curve here. And like that. And now, the second working cord in on this row is the one we want to add a bead again. So I take this, and this is one, always remember this is now one of the outside ones, so on this we want to add a 4mm bead. Just get that onto your cord, And then when you have that, let it drop all the way down again, just like before, and kind of sit inside this space for it. Bring this working card that I just added my bead onto underneath the holding card and continue your row in the exact same way. Like that. And then that cages in that bead by doing this double half hitch on the outside there. Grab your next working card, make a double half hitch, start going upwards with your holding card again, so we get those curves nicely around the beads. And the next one. So now that we've gone properly into the pattern, the first one there isn't going to be quite the same because the first row was more straight, where the rest here are going to be nice and curved. We're almost going to have this now touch the upper side that we did on the previous curve around there, so they're almost going to be touching. The last working card, same principle as what I showed you up here. Don't keep pulling the holding card upwards, now start actually coming downwards to get a nice curve in there, to be able to then fit the bead in that space. Swapping directions, so we take the holding card in the other direction over all the cards, and then swapping hands. Make a double half hitch with that working card, coming around the other way to get your curve in there. As you can see, we're coming back the other way now. Again, this very next working card, grab that, and then you want to add one of your 3mm beads onto that, because remember, this is towards the inside of the bracelet. So that's how you can always tell which size bead you need to add. So it's always towards the inside, the middle of the bracelet. On either side, when you do, it's the same way you do the other side as well. It's a small bead, and on the outside, it's the larger bead. So that, there you go, drop it down to the gap. Make a double half hitch with the same card. Tighten that and start pulling your holding card upwards again, so we have the row going nicely curving around the bead. Just like that. You can see this part now, the next double half hitch here, is also going to be almost touching with the row above it. And that's what we're going to be doing throughout. So this is basically the technique, and how we then achieve for this section of the pattern coming outwards and then curving back inwards again is simply because of the beads that we're adding. So on the inside there's the small ones, on the outside is the larger ones, and that's what's causing this to naturally curve. Like that. Swap direction again, take your holding card over in the opposite direction and keep making your knots. And now in this case I'm now ready to add in my 4mm bead again because I'm on the outside. And that's what you want to keep doing now. Keep building these up until it swerves back in and you end up pretty much in the same place as you've done up here, so it looks like a nice curve. So I've now kept going here, as you can see, and this is getting a nice curve to it, so it's coming back in again. And then what I've reached now is the last one that I'm going to add. So I've already started the last row here. I've added on my small bead to that little gap, so I'll take my holding card again back over the others, and then I take this working card with the bead on around my finger and through the loop. And then what we're doing now is basically the very last row that's going to be equivalent to the first one we made. So this one is going to be more straight again instead of curving back in too much. Go all the way through, because this is going to then be the beginning of the point we're going to connect them together as well. So just make a nice straight row coming down here, using all your working cards up, making a double half hitch with each of them, just like that, and there we go. So now what we have to do is you can take these pins out. It just helps keeps the work in place. So what we need to do now is go over to the other side here. So the cards we'll put to the side. In my case it's the right ones. So this whole batch of cards we need to do the exact same thing as we did on here, just obviously working in an opposite direction because it's the other side, so mirrored. So the way to start out, we start the exact same way. So always just remember, we start with the outer cord. So it doesn't matter what side you're on, it's always the outer one. So I'll take, in this case it's my furthest right one because I'm on the right side. Start bringing that over all the others and start making my first row. The exact same way here. So this is going to be the first one out of this piece where we're incorporating the beads into it as well. Using every single working cord, making a row here, working downwards towards the middle of the piece. And second to last one. And then just like before, when we get to the very last one here, instead of having it just be completely straight, we just want this gradually to come out a little bit as we're tightening the knot. So just move the positioning of the holding cord a bit to come downwards rather than straight outward. Just like that. And then to get into position, to make the next one, just swap your hands over, swap the cords. So the holding cord comes back over all the others, and you grab the very same working cord but with the opposite hand. And make the first curve here, like that. And then we just need to take our first bead. So again, this is the other side, but the first one here is the inside of the bracelet. So this one needs to be one of the small ones. So the 3mm beads we're adding to this. Let it drop all the way down. Grab your holding cord again over that, and then the cord here with the bead on, make a double half hitch to cage in the bead. And then when we're tightening this, the holding cord needs to be again going upwards here nicely. Grab the very next one, double half hitch, same principle. Now we want to just start getting nice curves in here as well. So just keep your holding cord nice and taut upwards when you're going around the bead here, rather than just a straight line. And same principle, going all the way to the end. And then right at the end here, the last one, is where we need to then start getting the curve in for the next row coming back around. So just gently change the position a little bit of your holding cord, as you can see I'm gently coming downwards a bit, swapping over so the working cord comes back underneath the holding cord, swapping hands here, and then just make another double half hitch and tighten that and come back around the other way, get that curve in there. And then remember, this is where we're at now. The second working cord in this row working the opposite direction is then the one we have to add the bead, and because we're on the outside we now need to add the 4mm bead. There we go, let it drop down the gap and then just continue making your double half hitches. And it's the exact same principle as the other side, getting the nice shapes and curves in there around the beads. So that's basically all there is to that. You're doing the exact same thing on this side, just with opposite hands. So keep doing this as well all the way down, and it'll naturally get that curve as well. So the two sides will get this curve coming back in towards and meet each other there. Now that I've then done both sides here all the way down, you can see we have this natural curve because of the beads that we're using. And then we have all our cords coming towards this direction towards each other, kind of like they will overlap like that. So now what we need to do is connect the two sides together. So what I'm going to do that is, you can just separate your cords out a little bit here. The very inner ones here, one from each side, you can see the very inner ones. Again, it doesn't matter which one you take over the other one, just stay consistent. So because I always take my right one over, I'm going to take the right cord over the left one, so they're crossing over like that. And then we need to connect these, so we're just going to use the one that's coming underneath is a working cord, make a double half hitch with that, tighten that all the way, so when it's tight the two sides are nicely tied together like that. And then this is the beginning of our next row here. So this row is going to go in this direction towards the left side, so that means we're going to be using all the cords from this left side that's coming underneath this holding cord. So just going all the way across, making another row just like we basically did in the beginning. It's just another row underneath the one from the section with the beads that we made, making a double half hitch with each of these working cords all the way down to the end. And just get this row as straight as possible as well. So we're getting there. The last one, that was the holding cord through that section. Just use that one as well to complete this row. So there we go. I've now used all the working cords on that side. Then what we need to do is just separate your cords out again. So all the working cords that you just used to make this row, just get them separated from all the ones coming from the right side. And then what we need is to only take the very inner one, so the one furthest towards the right of the cords on the left side here. So the inner one towards the corner of those working cords. We now need to bring that over all the cords on the right side here. So this is going to be the next holding cord to make a row on this side straight underneath. So grab the very next cord coming out of this bunch on the right. Use that as your first working cord. We're now making a row of knots here on this side by making a double half hitch with each of these working cords. Again, as straight a row as possible, all the way down using every single cord here. Second to last one. Then once you've done this, the two sides here of the waves will be tied and fastened together. The last one, that was the holding cord, bring that in as well. So there we go. We can just keep them separate to keep better track of our cords. We now have this and the two sides are nicely connected. What we then need to do now is get all the cords here into position to make our next wave with the beads up here. And as you can see, if we're looking at the very beginning, our rows of knots are going this direction. The ones we just done are going that direction, so they're not quite right to be able to make another one. So we have to fix that. So we have to have a little section here where we then get the cords to come, the rows of knots to come this way. So we basically need to make a little square here. So what's going to end up looking like. So the way we're going to do that is, again, I'm starting with one side. So just separate your cords out. All the working cords on the left side, I'm going to start using them first. So this is the holding cord from the very last row that you did over here. What I'm going to do is bring this back over all the working cords towards the middle again. Back in like this, and we want this angle, this row of knots we're going to be making now is going to be at an angle, so we're going to end up basically making a square or a diamond depending how you look at it. And then what I want to do for this design is I want to grab the very first working cord from the midpoint here. So not the first one further out towards the holding cord there, but the actual midpoint of the bracelet. I'm going to grab that first and then make a double half hitch with that down like this. Then remember that the way you hold your holding cord determines the direction your row is going to go in. So hold it at the angle that's going to be right to then this row of knots is going to make that square, so the cords can be in position to then make the next wave. And then I grab the very next working cord, that's now the inner one, make a double half hitch with that, building up your row here in the same way. And just always make sure you grab the very next one, because this gives a really nice effect, a bit of a different effect here. Grab the next one, that's now the inner one out of all the working cords on this side. Like that. Now I have two left. Make sure you grab the right one. So I'm taking this one, bringing it underneath the holding cord, and then tightening my double half hitch. And the very last one I've got right here. Then make my double half hitch with that one as well. So there we go. I've now used all the working cords on this side. You can see this little effect that we got here in the middle now is we've created that because of just the order that we took the cords in. So that's the one side. We do the exact same thing on the other side here. So grab the holding cord that we used in the previous row is still the holding cord. We bring that over the opposite direction. Grab the very inner working cord towards the middle of the piece. Make a double half hitch with that, and then tighten that while you're holding your holding cord in the right direction here. So in this case it's going to be going in to come down and meet up with the very end of the row on the other side there. Grab the very next one that's furthest in towards the middle to build this nice effect with our cords purely from the order that we're taking them in. Next one, working our way through all the working cords here, like that. Got two left, just separate them out, make sure you grab the right one, like this, and then we just have the very last one. Make a double half hitch. So we have this row now coming down at the right angle, and then all that's left to do is connect these two together. So again, doing the same thing, I take my right one over my left one and then make my double half hitch here as well. And that brings the two sides together and fastened like that. So we now have this nice effect, and you can see now that the angle of these rows, we're now ready and in position to use these cords to then repeat this. Because they're at the right angle, they're facing this way, down here as well. So what we really need to do now is just keep repeating the same things. We're now in position to repeat up here, start back up with that beaded wave section. You just want to do the exact same thing, and then we just repeat that a few times, and then your bracelet will be done. So it's then something like this it should look like once you've continued and you've made all three sections here of your waves there. So something like this. See, this is the front where you get all the patterning going on. The back looks like this, you got the beads a bit more pronounced. And then all that's left to do now is finish off the end down here. So for that, you then want to get your other jump ring out here as well, and you want to make sure that that's closed as well as the other one we did in the beginning. And then all we want to do is take some of these cords here at a time and start tying them around the jump ring. So what I'm going to do is really just use regular knots with these. So you got all your cords crossing over like that. I'm going to start from the middle, so take the two middle, one from each side there, and I'm just going to start with them, put my jump ring onto one of them, so basically put my cord through one of them, and then I'm just going to take the other one on the outside of that and just tie a regular overhand knot all the way down to the jump ring here. And then what we want to do is I'm just going to pick it up and flip it around. We then have a look at our knot here, and I want to make sure to then, the cord that's kind of on the top of the jump ring now, I'm going to put that through the jump ring to the other side, and then the other cord here is already on that side. So again, tying another time around the jump ring. Just go to the back or flip the jump ring over so you get space to work with, and tie just another regular knot around there. It's just to secure it in place really. So there we go. So now the actual knot, the finish there, is ended up on the back. And we're going to finish that off with singeing it down, securing it in place once we've done all of them. So that's the first one. It looks like that from the front. So you can't really see much. And all you want to do really is take a look at your jump ring and all your cords coming out from the end of the bracelet there. It's going to be a bit hard for me to show you, but just work on one side at a time. You then move on to the next two cords, do the same thing, bring them through, tie a knot, and then through to the back side and tie a knot. And you just work your way all the way out to the side there, using them all up. So it's going to end up looking very similar to there, as much as we can, but also we want to make sure it's nice and secure. And once you've done that, tied all your knots on the back here, then where your knot is ending and your cords are coming out, you just want to cut that down to about 1 millimeter or 2, and then singe off the end of it and seal it in place with a lighter. So you can only do that if you're using synthetic cord like what I'm doing here, nylon cord. But if you're using a natural cord for this, what you can do then is put glue around the knots in the back here and then cut them down, so the cords, the excess cord off there. So you can do either one of those that you feel comfortable with, and otherwise you just do that with all the cords, get rid of them, and then we have the jump rings attached on both ends, so we can then use these jump rings to attach our clasp to. So when you then finished off all your ends there, and you've attached your clasp and extended chain if that's what you want to use, then this will be your finished bracelet. And then it's just a matter of using your clasp here to wear it, and you can just gently shape it into shape. It's going to sit nicely around your wrist. It's going to sit like this all the way around, giving this nice effect of these waves here with beads in as well. So this kind of triple wave bracelet. So this is what it looks like. So I really hope you enjoyed this tutorial and found it useful, and thank you very much for watching. Hello there everyone. Today I want to show you how to make this inside 4-row macrame bracelet, and this is what it looks like. So you get 4 rows going across, and obviously you can do whatever design you want. This is just what I'll be showing you. And I've just finished mine off with lobster claw clasp and extender chain, but you can do it however you want.